I'm making 2 books at a time, both specifically made for the 100-day project. The same size, just with a few variations. Because the 100-day project starts in April, I find it a really nice reason to get out and just observe the world. This is not a complete tutorial. It is just in addition to our tutorial number 2, where we stitch signatures together. So if you're making a book for a particular project, then it's really important to consider both the size and the page count of your book. Because I'm making this book for my 100-day project, I'm going to consider how many pages I need. Mostly, I like to dedicate a full spread per day. So I'm going to need double the pages. In some instances, I'll use 1 page per day, but for the most part, I like to account for a spread. If your 100-day project will consist of 1 spread per day, you will need 52 sheets, which is just this size. Once you fold in half, it's called a folio, and you'll be putting 4 folios inside of each other, and it makes up a signature. So 4 folios to your signature. You will have 13 signatures in the book that you'll stitch together, and that will give you 204 pages minus the front and back cover, so it'll bring it down to 202 pages. If you want to make a book that is dedicating 1 page per day, then you'll need 27 sheets. You'll put 3 folded sheets or folios inside of each other. So your signature will be 3 folios, and you'll have 9 signatures. And this will give you 108 pages. Minus the front and back covers, you will have 106 pages. The little extra can come in handy for notes or whatever you may want to add. I hope this helps. We also have a little chart on our blog, which might make this a little bit more clear. I'm going to measure out this. I'm going to start with my 1/4 inch ends. This is just where our knots go. So you'll see these along the side. And again, if you choose a colored thread, that's also going to be part of your visual. That leaves this big open space. You know what? I think I am. So here are going to be my tape. So because it's so wide, I don't want to stick out really far. So I might just make it go to about here. So I have my 1 page marked. I'm going to mark the other one. I'm going to put 1 in the front and 1 in the back. So usually I would put this into a vise or a clamp or something to hold these together, and then I would take a ruler and I'd make my line straight. If it is just you working and you don't have a clamp, or you don't have somebody that can play the role of clamp, this double-sided marking will help. There are my marks. All right, so I just want to show you this. So I've made many books in my life, poking 1 hole at a time. But I'm also a jeweler, and I've always had jeweler's saws around. And at one point in my life, it occurred to me that I could saw these. So, this is a jeweler's saw, and this is a blade for plastics. So, I found that the plastic saw blade in a jeweler's saw is perfect. I would normally put this in a vise and just saw straight through, nice and even, and it gives me the perfect depth and thickness for my bookbinding needle. So I've been incorporating antique materials of all kinds into the work that I do for most of my life. I love the stories that they hold, and the character and really the quality of these old things are fantastic. This is what started me off on incorporating textiles into my journals. This was in a bundle that I found at my favorite abandoned house. It belonged to Flossie and Jack. These were saved in the attic, and this was the negative space of a dress that Flossie had made. My friend and I found all of her dresses, and we washed them and wore them for years, and we saw all the evidence of the patching and the stitching, as these were likely from the Depression era. I'm going to take this beautiful pattern, this beautiful textile, and I'm going to use it for the linens of my journal. It came in this delightful little bundle. I don't know when this is from, maybe 30s, 40s or something. Maybe somebody can tell me. The fabric was just saved. They didn't put anything to waste, so this was definitely a feed sack. You can tell by those holes. So this feed sack was stitched together to make a bag for grain, and then people would use the patterns and the normal cotton feed sack textiles to make clothes out of. So this was most likely the negative space from the pattern that was cut. And then they used this piece to tie the entire bundle together. So I am just going to cut some of this wonderful vintage textile that I found, and I made these 1 inch wide so that I could really kind of show off this. A lot of you have been asking what kind of thread I'm using. So this is waxed. I have a lot of really nice colors. What looks good with this, I wonder? I have 13 of these signatures, and I'm going to measure 13 lengths of waxed linen. All right, so are measuring slightly larger than the length of the spine. I know I have a bunch of extra, but not a crazy amount of extra, because the longer your thread is, especially for a big book like this, the more tangled it's going to get during your sewing. Also, if you cut your thread too short so that you have less to manage, you're gonna have to knot it somewhere in your book, which is not a big deal, but for some reason I don't like doing it. I'm pulling the needle, making my length of thread that I'm working with almost half.